I'm Dennis Woodmeyer. I help moderate Chuck's social media and his website. And you are, of course,
Chuck Palahniuk.
All right, so we got 40 minutes to do this. The new graphic novel is Fight Club 3 out in stores now. And we're going to read some fan questions. So here we go. Nathan from Portola Valley, California wants to ask, a lot of comic readers are also comic book collectors. Do you collect anything?
Do I collect anything? I collect the books that I used to read when I was little, which were the EC comics, Eerie, and what's the other one? There were two books, Eerie and
Creepy. It was Vault of Horror. There was Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, the publishers. Yeah.
But I'm always shocked when I look at them now, because I realize that in my pre-adolescence, all of those comics were so incredibly sexualized. Everybody always crawled out of their grave with no clothes on, or with very little clothes on. And even though they'd been dead for weeks and weeks, they still looked fantastic. And so now I really realize why, so much of my psyche was kind of crystallized by these sexy dead comics. Creepy and eerie. Creepy and eerie.
Yeah. And the Tales from the Crypt HBO show was kind of just like that. It was all about horror and sex. They kept that going. So we should give a shout out to Live Signing. I realized we didn't do that. Live Signing, who's hosting the event. And let's give a shout out to Dark Horse Comics as well, who published Fight Club 3. And let's move on to the next question.
And I am busy signing books while we're doing this.
God, I wish I had your handwriting. All right. Question number 2. Alexander from Harrisburg, North Carolina asks, if you could only grow one plant for the rest of your life, what would it be, and what would you use that plant for?
That plant. Okay, everybody is so crazy about these little fig trees. Everybody's got a fig in their house. Probably you even have a fig in your house.
We're good at killing them, yeah.
You're missing the boat. You need to go to a Jerusalem cherry. The Jerusalem cherry is a small, woody little plant, like a little bush. And it's a species of hemlock. Of nightshade. So the berries, it has these very large orange berries that are about the size of a cherry. That's why it's called a Jerusalem cherry.
Okay.
You don't want to get it while you got the kid, because they're really appealing. They're so beautiful and they're bright orange. And when I was little, I would buy Jerusalem cherries, and I learned how to bonsai them. And you can bonsai them very easily into these very dramatic canopied trees that once a year will blossom and will be covered for months at a time in these beautiful bright orange cherries that just hang there for weeks and weeks. They really don't fall. And so the coloring book Legacy was based on a bonsaied peach tree. But really, it was just a retelling of my childhood, bonsaiing these Jerusalem cherry trees. And then I could sell them through my father's nursery. And they made me any spending money I had as a little kid. So Jerusalem cherries. Look it up.
Indoor or outdoor plant?
It depends on where you live, but in the Northwest it would be an indoor plant.
Right. Okay. Nice.
And they do very well indoors.
Okay. That's all I need to hear. Megan from Brewster, New York asks, which of the 3 Fight Club novels was the most fun to write?
It would always have to be the first one. They're all fun, but the first one I wrote with the resolution that I was tired of skipping parties to write, and that I was going to go to more parties than I had ever gone to in my life. And so writing the first one was just this enormous series of parties.
Nice.
So it was all parties.
Okay. Nice. Omar from San Diego wants to know, which show creator would you like to bring your books onto the silver screen?
You know, I wish I even knew more than one show creator. I really don't know show creators.
What are some of your favorite shows? Maybe start there.
My favorite shows. I'm not even sure if I've got favorite shows. I love some stuff that FX has done.
Yeah.
FX has done some really sort of remarkable, dark, funny things, like Feud, the Bette Davis, Joan Crawford miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was beautiful, and it was also funny, and it was also very tragic.
Yeah.
So
Ryan Murphy, he'd be a good pick. Yeah.
What's that?
Ryan Murphy, that's the show creator of that. He's done some really good stuff. He'd be a good pick. Yeah. Okay. Amber from Holly Springs, North Carolina wants to know, how are you adjusting to life under quarantine? Does it help hinder your writing process?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, I'm over it.
My writing process is very social. I like to be out around people while I'm working. And this just does not work. It's just too easy to do anything else. So, I need peer support, and I need a social venue for writing in. And sometimes one of my fallbacks was always the emergency room. That's a great place to write, but you just don't want to go to emergency rooms and hang out right now.
So you would say it's hindered your writing process?
A lot, yeah.
I hear you. All right, here we go. Stephania, interesting name. I don't know if that was supposed to be Stephanie, but Stephania with an A on the end, from Chicago, Illinois, wants to know, what would you ask the president if you met him now and he couldn't lie?
All politics aside, my father late in life said that he wished he had never divorced my mother, that was the biggest mistake he had ever made. And I always wonder if Donald doesn't wish that he had stayed with Ivana, because Donald and Ivana were such the couple. They were really the couple. And I wanted to see them stay together. So I wonder if he wonders that too.
Right. Cool. All right. By the way, how many books do you have there that you're signing? Is it an overwhelming amount, or?
It's a stack.
Wow. Okay. Before you're done, you got to slide that stack in front of the monitor. I want to see how many you have there. All right. Jessica from Green Bay, Wisconsin, wants to know, what would you put on a soundtrack for this book, Fight Club 3? What would you put on the soundtrack if they made this?
I'm going to take a pass on that one, just because I got nothing in mind. Yeah, I really don't.
We know what influenced the first book. You think it would still be that, or do you think you've moved on a little bit?
I've definitely moved on. In fact, I listen a lot less to music.
Yeah.
The irony being that, there's more music at my fingertips now than ever.
Yeah. I agree.
So much less likely, especially with comics, because with comics, it's so incredibly highly structured that you're always worrying about the structure and the number of panels on the page and setting up the page turn reveal. And you're always trying to keep so many different intercut aspects together that music is more of a distraction than anything.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to find the right music to actually write to, depending on what you're writing. Do you listen to podcasts?
I do, different ones, but why? Why do you ask?
I love podcasts, and they've kind of taken over my time from music. It's like when I'm not writing and listening to music, I'm usually listening to podcasts, even in my car. So it's kind of sad that that's happened, but it's the reality. So I was just curious.
That's a really good point, because when I'm doing sort of a repetitive manual labor, it's always podcasts now.
Yeah. Moving on, we got Alyssa from Abilene, Texas. She wants to know, what animal would you choose for a pet if it was the size of a cat/small dog? So not a small dog, but an animal that could be the size of a small dog or a cat. These are the questions that keep you up at night, right?
Yeah. I already have a dog that is the size of a cat.
And I have a cat the size of a dog. So just a dog, maybe?
Maybe a panda?
I was going to say a panda. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. They just reported that these two pandas in one of the zoos finally had sex, so the quarantine has been good for something. I know. Propagate the species. Zachary from Lakewood, Colorado, and I feel like you've gotten this question before. He says, how do you feel about the band Panic at the Disco writing songs inspired by your books, and do you like the songs?
You know, I thought it was great. No complaints whatsoever. What I've heard of the songs I like, so I don't think I've heard the whole album in question.
Yeah.
But no, I got no problem. I always take that as flattery. Yeah.
Cool. And we got Nicole from Freehold, New Jersey, wants to know, what do you do when you hit a reading slump? Not a writing slump, a reading slump.
You know, sometimes I'll go back and I'll reread something that always works for me. Where sometimes I will read somebody like Lovecraft and decide that I'm going to write in exactly that voice. So instead of reading for the plot, I start to read Lovecraft to pick up all the little devices, the little tricks that he uses, so that I can write a story in exactly the same voice or a really close copy of Lovecraft's voice. So either read something you love in the past or read something with the idea of mimicking the voice, so that you're reading in order to study the voice, everything about the voice, for a story of your own.
Nice. I've never read Lovecraft, but from what I've heard, he's tough to get into. Like, the writing is kind of dense and kind of complicated, but then once you get it, it's great. Would you agree? Or?
It's really tough for modern audiences.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool.
There's a joke. There's an old joke that in all of Lovecraft's work, there are only 17 lines of dialogue. And that's pretty close to the truth. Almost no dialogue. So
that's interesting. Okay, I gotta read. Alexander from Hartford, Wisconsin wants to know, when are you going to start writing movies?
Well, right now, I'm supposed to be writing a television series for Apple Television. And my outlines have been green-lighted. I'm supposed to go to script now, but that is another one of the things that is not getting done with COVID, because part of me just keeps thinking, I don't know, we're all going to die. So what's the point?
They're not going to make the show.
I'm going to do anything else. They're not going to shoot this in my lifetime.
Yep.
There's always some dramatic excuse.
So is this an exclusive that you're writing a show for Apple Plus?
Yeah, it's an anthology show.
Very cool. Is there anything more you can say about it, or do you want to keep it closer to the vest?
I am writing it with John Scheiben. He's our showrunner. And John and I put the pilot together. I'm doing the second episode. Apple seems to like it. And beyond that, they will be commissioning more episodes that I will probably try not to write.
Awesome. Sounds like a good plan. Okay, then we got Vivian from Hamburg. That must be Hamburg, Germany. Since you're able to speak a bit of German, do you like the German language? Sincerely, Tuna from Germany. Interesting.
I love the German language. The German language is the easiest language in the entire world to learn if you're an English speaker, but I'm lousy. And I have a lot of German friends who are constantly trying to get me up to speed on German. So, aber mein Deutsch ist still schlecht. I'm a terrible German speaker.
Yeah, I took a year of it in college, and I could count to 10. That's about it.
Ah,
Okay, Michael from, let me see if I'm saying this correctly, Quesnel, British Columbia. Michael from Quesnel, British Columbia wants to know, he says, I want to write, but I'm lazy. How can I best work out my writing muscles? Probably get that question a lot.
Well, one thing is, never sit down to write until you have got pages and pages in your notebook. And this is the notebook that I maintain, that I carry around all the time. Because when I started, the goal was just to get one good line every day. And so to be able to write down that one good line when it occurs, wherever it occurs, so that when you do sit down at the computer, you are working from a bunch of good ideas already. Because at the computer is not the magic place where anything happens. It's just a place where you keyboard it. So keep a notebook and carry it everywhere, because you don't know when the idea is going to happen. And other than that, give yourself 10 minutes to say, I'm going to write for 10 minutes today. And if it doesn't happen, if I'm not in love with it in 10 minutes, then I can quit and do whatever I want. Okay? 10 minutes, and then I am free without guilt to do whatever I want. And most of the time, if you do it for 10 minutes, you will keep doing it. It's just that initially, getting started. So give yourself 10 minutes, and most of the time you will write way beyond that.
I'm going to expand upon this question a little bit, because as a fan and fellow reader, I feel like there's more to this question that sometimes doesn't get asked of you. Do you like to write in the morning, day, night? Does it matter?
Morning, more than anything.
Right.
Because morning is before anybody's put language in my head.
Right. Yeah.
I'm coming out of sleep. A lot of times I'll tell myself I'm not going to get out of bed until I come up with a really great idea. Mm-hmm. So I'll think about what I've been working on recently, and it's that great idea will occur. And that's what gets me out of bed, is the fear that I'm going to lose this idea unless I put it in the notebook.
Yeah.
So morning.
One more on this is, let's say you have a day where you only write for 10 minutes and it's just not happening. What's the longest writing session you've ever had, where you start writing and it's pretty much you don't put the pen down until you're done? And how long has that been on average?
That might actually have been the short story Guts, because that was such an unpleasant story to write that I knew that I was going to have to write all the way through, just get an entire first draft, whatever, 11, 13 pages. And I think Chelsea had given me a Vicodin. And I knew if I took a Vicodin, I could get past how unpleasant the story was going to be, and I could get the whole thing down on the page. So after that, each time I revisited it, it would be a lot less daunting. So I had to write the whole story in one sitting, more or less.
Wow.
And that would have been the Gut story.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Adam from Spokane Valley, Washington wants to know, how do you feel about the general misconception of Fight Club messages? So sometimes people misconstrue the message of Fight Club. He said Fight Clubs, but I think I know what he means.
It happens with everything. You control what you can control, and what you cannot control, people are going to use for their own agenda. And the only option is not to contribute anything. because if you felt like you had to constantly control how people perceived it, you would be putting out fires and you would be trying to correct people for the rest of your life. So, yeah, the philosopher Roland Barthes said that the author is dead because the book is not complete until it's read by the reader. The reader actually completes the book. And yeah, it's not my job to control people's perceptions.
Amen. Seth from Bayfield, Colorado says, top 3 favorite bands. Should we skip this one?
You're all going to be ancient. Bauhaus.
Wait, did you just say Bauhaus? Christine, did you hear that? Chuck, one of Chuck's favorite bands is Bauhaus. You know, my wife's obsessed with Bauhaus, right? And Peter Murphy. It's funny. We can cut this.
And psychedelic furs.
Okay.
Psych furs.
Seeing a new wave bent going on here.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. That's kind of my beginning and ending. Oh, and Radiohead.
Radiohead, okay, there you go. All right, moving on. Wesley from Mankato, Minnesota. Would you like to see any more movie adaptations, and has it been discussed? I think more specifically, what adaptations would you like to see?
Oh, you know, I'm not really attached to adaptations because they are such a crapshoot. If they do really, really well, then they erase the book and people forget the book ever existed, which was the case with The Graduate. And if they do really, really poorly, then they're kind of a general embarrassment that you've got to live with for the rest of your life as everyone tells you how badly they thought the movie turned out. And you just feel terrible for everybody involved who made the effort. So that's another thing I don't put a lot of emotional expectation into. It's like, it's fine if it happens, but I don't lay awake night.
Right.
So yeah, I just never consider it.
Cassie from Dearborn Heights, Michigan. What is your absolute favorite dessert?
I am told that it is carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. Yeah, that would be it.
All right, we're going to start flying through these now. Andrew from Fresno, California. What goldfish are you?
I don't understand that question.
Neither do I. Alberto from Jerez de la Frontera, Cadiz. Probably butchered that. How are you holding up in these crazy times? I think you already said not too great, right?
You know, I gave up drinking last August, and I was having a great time not drinking. It was so productive, and I couldn't believe just how much work I was getting done. It was really the most fantastic, creative time of my life. And then all of this lockdown has kind of ended all of that. You know, I've suddenly become completely non-productive. It's driving me nuts, but I'm just trying to do what I can, like this. You know, I'll do what I can.
Okay, we got Amy from St. Louis, Missouri. What do you think about COVID-19?
You know, on one level, after living through all the craziness of AIDS, and this is like AIDS accelerated. This is like, you know, how slow AIDS took to gain momentum and come into the public awareness for people to be upset about AIDS. And all of this is like this crash course in AIDS, that everybody involved, instantly involved, and the whole world sort of, you know, noticing. So we're kind of revisiting something that was a big part of my, you know, my 20-something years. And in that way, it feels a little boring and repetitious.
Right. What is your favorite? Okay, so Barbara from Everett, Washington. I'm skipping around now. Barbara from Everett, Washington wants to know, what is your favorite word? Mine is facetious. That's Barbara talking, not me.
I've always liked the word tintintabulation from Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Bells.
Okay.
The tintintabulation that so musically swells from the bells, 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 bells.
That's a good one.
Tintintabulation.
Tara from San Francisco, California. What are you most proud of at this point in your life?
Most proud of. Boy, yeah, on a real gut level,
Yeah.
I'm most proud that I could take care of my mother in her last days when she had cancer. That is something I will never regret. I'll look back and think I did that one thing right. I'm most proud of being able to help the authors, friends, people I knew, help them with introductions, help them with breaking into the market, help the students I've had when I see them take the giant leap from writing really poorly to suddenly finding their voice, writing fantastic, completely unpredictable work. I'm hugely proud of them, but I'm also slightly proud of myself for at least being there to support them until they got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'll throw a light one your way. Brianna from Fort Worth, Texas wants to know, what's more intriguing to you, space or the deep sea?
Space. Because I can't swim. And the deep sea just sounds terrifying.
You can't swim? You never learned how
I
to
cannot swim. I grew up in the desert. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Then we got another easy one. Alyssa from Atlanta, Georgia. Do you personally have a favorite book or author? And if you can't narrow it down to one, maybe just remind readers a handful of some of your favorite books and authors.
Boy.
And it could be modern, but like books now, things you liked now, maybe switch it up a little bit.
The book I keep going back to right now is a book, huge fat academic book called The Program Era by Mark McGurl. And it's all about the MFA programs for creative writing in the 20th century in America. And it so thoroughly unpacks why writing is the way writing is right now. And it is simultaneously dazzling and depressing because you see really just how limited fiction has become. Fiction, this thing that should be about anything, has become just about these very, very limited fields. And that's why I find myself disliking most fiction, is that it has to fit into one of three different categories to be considered sort of legitimate or worth reading by the culture. And so much of that seems to be driven by MFA programs. So Mark McGurl's The Program Era.
Connected to that, because I've heard a lot of people talk about this recently on podcasts I listen to. Do you feel like people don't read anymore, and that like the idea of literature and the novel is kind of dying?
That's something that Brett Ellis went on and on about the last time I was down and talked to him. And right now, there's just so many different forms of media that are serving people better. And I think that if books took advantage of what books could do the very best, I mean, right now, books are written in isolation. They can be produced in remote isolation, edited remotely, published remotely. Books should be eating up the market right now because no other form of media can be created in so much isolation and deliver what books deliver. But will people get past their training that a book has to be this one very specific thing in order to be taken seriously. You know, right now, you know, books have given up all their freedom about being able to be about anything. And they've kind of killed themselves in that way.
Yeah. Is that one of the reasons that you were drawn to doing the comic?
That's one of the reasons. You know, the other reason is, you know, with Fight Club, the original novel has got such a following, the movie has such a following. Just to get a sequel, for a sequel to get its own authority, I felt it had to be in a different medium. Yeah. And so comics were a good medium, as well as the fact that comics have a kind of a certain amount of wiggle room in that you can have really outrageous elements that if you made them literal enough to film them for a movie, they would be enormously offensive. They wouldn't be permitted. Right. Fight Club 3, you know, a third of it happens in a sex club and with very old people in a sex club. And that's just not going to work in a motion picture. So, but on the other hand, it wouldn't work in a book either, because it's so visual that if you try to break it down and show it in a book, you would effectively stop the plot because there'd be so much description. So that's the thing that comics can do, is they can have the sort of huge visual impact, but it doesn't have to be so realistic that it's off-putting.
Right. Adam from Orlando, Florida wants to know, will there be a Fight Club 4?
What would be my Fight Club?
Would there be a Fight Club 4?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You have an idea already?
I do. And the ending of Fight Club 3 kind of shows my hand. Right. But yeah, there will be.
Okay. We might get cut off here in about 3 to 5 minutes. I don't know. So we'll just keep talking until we do.
Now, I just saw a prompt that came up that said you've been upgraded, so you have unlimited time.
Really? I didn't get that. Okay, let's keep going then. Okay. Try to get some different ones. Sabrina from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania says, who is your favorite character from Greek or Roman mythology?
Oh, in Lewis Hyde's book, The Gift, he talks about the Greek and the Roman idea that upon our birth, we are visited by a spirit. And the Greeks and the Romans call this either your genius or your daemon. And this spirit informs you of all that you can potentially accomplish, all of your possibility throughout your life. And if you believe, you take the support, you take the coaching of your spirit, of your demon or your genius, and you live up to that potential, then you effectively free that spirit to become a benevolent, wonderful, next level thing. But if you ignore the support of your inspiration, your muse, your genius, your daemon, then you condemn that being, that spirit, to becoming a malevolent thing that haunts the earth for its existence. And so I just love that idea of being visited by this coaching, supportive spirit from birth that tells you all that you're capable of doing, and then whether or not you actually believe them and do that.
Wow. Vladimir from London, UK wants to know, where is the best place to buy soap? Or where to buy the best soap? Where do you buy your best soap?
You know, since I have gone on at least one book tour a year since 1996, I have not had to buy soap. My life is cluttered with thousands of tiny baby hotel soaps. So I have never used a full bar of soap. I've never bought a bar of soap since 1996.
Yeah, I was hoping you could recommend one. By the way, how is your hair cut? You cut your own hair? Because obviously my hair is, I'm very overdue for a haircut, and I'm very jealous of you right now. You just buzzed it yourself?
You know, I kept it shaved all through the winter before the whole virus thing happened.
Right.
And now it's just barely coming back.
Sean from Jeffersonville, Indiana, wants to know, what book are you most proud of and why?
I think I'm going to go back to the short story book, Make Something Up. You know, I don't really love all the stories, but I think that the stories that are in it are the best things I've ever done. And it does show how my writing has improved over the last 25 years, because it took 25 years to put those stories together. So Make Something Up has just got such a wild range of stories in it. Yeah.
Okay. Brian from Lebanon, Pennsylvania wants to know, what inspires you to continue writing about Tyler Durden?
About Tyler?
Yeah.
Boy, Tyler is like the most enabling friend you could ever want. If there's any kind of base impulse or any kind of thing that you're frightened to do, Tyler Durden will get you to do it. And Tyler Durden is kind of like the friend I have always wanted, who would talk me into anything, and he would green light anything, and he would approve anything. And Tyler Durden is kind of the proof of life after death. Tyler is immortality. Tyler is what proves that the physical world is just kind of a farce. So Tyler is this complete freedom that is guaranteed by religion. Tyler is all of those things.
Okay, here's a good one. Ryan from Naperville, Illinois, wants to know, any chance of your other books getting the graphic novel treatment? I would kill for a Lullaby or a Survivor rework in this medium. Think of the porn fill.
Think of the what? The last part?
Think of the porn fill. He's trying to sell you on it. He said, think of the porn fill. I think he's talking about Survivor.
You know, I have got other things, newer ideas that might actually go into graphic novels first. Part of doing a graphic novel is it's such a concentrated form of writing. You really have to be there. It's exhausting.
Right.
Keeping track of all the structure and making it work in that format. That I'm not sure if any of my existing books would hold my interest strong enough to go through that whole process of translating them into the different medium, so that they would work in pictures.
I assume you've been approached a lot probably about that, about adapting some of your earlier novels into graphic novels.
Yeah, Dark Horse has talked to me about that. Scott Alley, my editor, has. And I can see doing sequels, but I really don't see doing the originals as graphic novels, just because the material would be so known to me, so familiar to me.
Have you considered a sequel to any of the books in graphic novel form? Was there one that kind of rose to the top?
Maybe the Rant books. That would be a way of really fulfilling that desire.
Yeah, and I can't find it now. Here we go. Tying into that, Georgia from Charlotte, North Carolina, her question was, any chance of a Rant sequel or a trio logo? But yeah, I guess you get that question a lot, people wanting more of Rant. So that would probably be the one that you would do as a graphic novel sequel?
That would be, yeah, definitely.
I think Rant is one of your best, or one of my favorite novels of yours, so I personally love that. Courtney from Denver, Colorado says, what's your favorite Quentin Tarantino film?
Oh. I'm going to be the last person in the world to see Once Upon a Time. And I kind of fall back on Jackie Brown. I really do, yeah.
Good choice. Okay. Chase from Lacey, Washington asks, have you ever seen a UFO?
I have.
Okay.
This was when I was very small, maybe 7 or 8. My family always would go up into the Idaho Panhandle to pick huckleberries. And my father's family lived up there. And one summer, it would always be 90, 100 degrees, these dry pine forests. My parents got into this fantastic fight, and my father dumped my mother and us way up in the mountains. I had 3 siblings, so there were this young woman and 4 very small kids. And we were dumped up in these mountains as my father left us to cool off. And we spent the day basically picking huckleberries and wandering around. And at one point, there was this enormous roaring sound. And we looked up, and crossing the sky was this, to me as a child, I thought it was a Christmas ornament. This was noon. This was the bluest July, middle of the day, sunshine, not a cloud. But there was this huge silver Christmas ornament that was slowly passing across the sky, and it was trailing fire in every color you could imagine, just this whole rainbow of fire. And beyond that seemed to be some sort of vapor or smoke beyond this rainbow fire. But the front of the object was this gleaming, perfect silver. And it moved so slowly that it must have taken 10 or 12 or 15 seconds to pass over the entire sky and disappear behind mountains. And at that point, we were just dumbfounded. We had no idea what we had seen. But my mother was convinced that somehow UFOs had landed nearby, and that they would be out of this spaceship, and that they would be looking for prisoners. And so my mother made us run into the forest and hide underneath bushes for hours and hours until my father finally showed up. And among my siblings, we all have this memory of seeing this impossibly bright, loud, beautiful thing. But in the end of my mother's life, when we mentioned it to her, she had no recollection of it. She had no memory of that afternoon, which was sad. But for the rest of us, we have no idea what we saw, but it was beautiful.
Wenzu from Edison, New Jersey wants to know, what's a more powerful motivator, love or hate?
Hate. Hate and anger always produce a much better story, because they kind of give you this freedom that love doesn't. Love is all about looking good and wanting to be liked. And hate is about not caring. And that is much more creative when you quit caring how you appear, when you really don't, it's not about looking good to yourself.
Are there key books of yours that you've approached with that in mind?
Boy, I've got a book out this fall, which is very different than anything I've ever written, called The Invention of Sound. And it is really a brutal book. It doesn't have a lot of comedy in it. It's got some moments of levity, but it really is more of a thriller than anything I've ever done. And it's got a ridiculous cover. So the cover is the goofiest thing about it, but from there, it is fantastically dark. And yeah.
Do you get any say in your covers?
I do, but mostly it's mostly I'm kind of asked to rubber stamp them.
What is one of your favorite covers?
The original Fight Club cover with the translucent soap was a fantastic cover. The Lullaby cover with the dead starling was a fantastic cover. Yeah, so the good covers are so good that even a mediocre cover looks bad compared to the good covers.
Yeah, it sounds like you like less is more.
Yeah.
A stark image. Cheryl from Hartsville, South Carolina wants to know, do you ever remember a strange dream and then write about that dream?
No.
No?
But it's funny because the book I'm working on right now, I'm trying to write passages of it in the style in which you describe dreams when you wake up in the morning. That story, Loser, I wrote about the kid who was on the game show and had taken LSD. And so it has this kind of run-on sentences that are constantly contradicting themselves. Things are this, except they're this, but they're really this. And so things are so constantly morphing in this nonsensical way throughout that story. The way that they do when you're talking about a dream, you're saying, we were in the house we grew up in, but it wasn't in Burbank, it was in Spokane, and mom and dad were there, but they weren't there because it was really these other people, but we knew it was mom and dad. So when you talk about a dream, you're talking about it in all these sort of contradictory, qualified ways. And so I'm trying to write big passages of the next book using that kind of dream journal language. So in a way, maybe I am doing that.
Do you remember your dreams a lot? Do you find like you dream a lot?
I do. I dream intensely.
I don't, and I wish I did. I go through phases, but for a while, I haven't remembered a dream in probably a year. It's weird.
Wow.
I don't know. I gotta probably take someone to sleep, maybe. Andrew from Jeffersonville, Indiana said, I'm studying dangerous writing, and I'm working on checking off your list of recommends from Consider This, your writing memoir. And I'm wondering what one piece of advice what your one piece of advice would be for someone learning to write in this style / genre. I guess he means minimalism. I'm a longtime fan, and I can't wait to meet you on your next tour, A.C. Smith. He was asking for the one piece of advice, I guess, for writing in the style that you talk about and Consider This.
Boy, there was two pieces of advice I would say. One is the worst thing that can be said about your writing if you're writing minimalism. If Gordon Lish said, this sounds too writerly, or Tom Spanbauer says, this sounds like a writer wrote it. And so the idea is to write the way people tell stories, not write the way that writers tell stories. So don't summarize, because summarize is just a big shortcut. But don't write sounding writerly, if that makes any sense. That's the most damning thing in minimalism.
Yeah. This is sort of connected to that. It's another craft question. Jeff from Indianapolis, Indiana said, what is the most important part of storytelling? So I guess really not writing, but storytelling.
Momentum. Always keeping the tension creating tension, maintaining the tension, building the tension, not overwhelming the audience with too much tension, and then resolving as much tension as possible, as quickly as possible at the end, because that relief will occur as joy. That's a happy ending. So creating tension, creating unresolvedness, and being able to be with that yourself as the writer, but not creating so much that you swamp your reader. And then resolving as much of that as beautifully as possible at the end, as quickly as possible, so that it occurs as this enormous relief. That's it. Momentum.
Trisha from Las Vegas said, could you share some little known Fight Club trivia for a huge longtime fan? I have all of your work, exclamation point. There's a piece of trivia that you've not really talked publicly about in regards to Fight Club, whether the novel or the adaptation or...
Did you hear, did I tell you a story about Brad Pitt's $14,000 wig?
No, I've never heard this one. I've heard most of them, so I'm all ears.
When they were getting ready to shoot Fight Club, Brad Pitt was still doing promotion for Meet Joe Black. And he contractually had to look the way he looked in Meet Joe Black. And so he was going to Japan, and he had already shaved his head because he wanted to be in character, really, get into being Tyler Durden. And the Japanese promoters did not want a Brad Pitt with a shaved head. That is not what all the Japanese audience wanted to see. So he had to agree to wearing this $14,000 blonde wig so that he would look like his character in Meet Joe Black, because he had shaved his head for Fight Club.
And are you a fan of Meet Joe Black? Have you seen it?
I've seen, if I understand right, Meet Joe Black is a remake of basically Heaven Can Wait, which is a remake of Here Comes Mr. Jordan.
Right.
So I liked Heaven Can Wait.
It's an interesting movie. This might be an easy one or a hard one. Mark from Mars, Pennsylvania says, would you recommend a new author?
A new author right now?
Yeah.
Boy. The newest author that I have been recommending is Naomi Moon, a Korean-American author. She has one short story collection called Miles from Nowhere. Naomi, N-A-M-I, Moon is M-U-N.
Okay.
So Naomi Moon.
Oh, great. I'll have to check that out. Okay. We're getting close to an hour here, so let's try to wrap this up. Darren from Kingwood, Texas, are there still plans for Survivor as a movie or a television series?
Francis Lawrence, the gentleman who made I Am Legend and Constantine and the Hunger Games movies, he has optioned Survivor for a limited television series. So Francis Lawrence.
And then I think Deadline posted an article about Invisible Monsters as a TV series as well. Have there been any updates behind the scenes on that?
I've met with the people there, the production company. They've hired a screenwriter. They were also associated with the series Outlander. Oh, so they have a really big track record.
Yeah. My parents love that show. Derek from Columbus, Ohio, if you could only recommend one thing to see or do in Portland, I assume Portland, Oregon, just one thing to do, what would it be?
In Portland. Boy, I would recommend it, but it is one of the most difficult things to get into and to see and do anymore. The enormous mausoleum in Selwood at 14th and Southeast Bybee, Columbia Memorial Mausoleum, they really cracked down on letting people in, because it had become kind of a hot spot for suicides. People would go in, and this place is so many miles and miles and miles of underground and above ground. crypts and hallways and galleries, all of it filled with art and filled with dead people. And it had become a place for goths to go to either have sex or to kill themselves. And so the place had a really spotty reputation. And now they're very, very strict about how people get into it.
Right.
But if you can get into it, it is absolutely the most surreal Escher-type experience you will have in Portland. The place is just an enormous, bizarre.
I feel like you did a photo shoot there. Like there was a photo of you there.
Yeah, there was.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. I'll have to check that out. Okay, two more. Here's one. Zoe from Uxbridge, Massachusetts wants to know, how did you find the courage to publish your first writings?
You know, I don't really consider it courage. Yeah, it depends on, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid you won't be published, or are you afraid your work will be published and people will ridicule it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you afraid your work will be published and your parents will see it and your parents will disown you? In my case, I kind of figured that my work would never be published. So there wasn't really a lot to be afraid of. I just wanted to play that part of the game. If you're going to write your work, you might as well market it. You might as well put it in front of people and get that ball rolling. And don't worry about what comes after that. So just worry about what's the task of making submissions.
Okay, and last but not least, probably the most important question you're going to get is from Joshua in Cypress, Texas. She wants to know, do you think Carol Baskins killed her husband? And do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's a show called Tiger King on Netflix. Have you heard of it?
Oh!
And have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay.
Scott tells me about it.
All right, then we'll leave it at that. Then you should definitely watch it, and then you'll understand the question. But this was great. Do you have any closing words or anything you want to say?
No, I one of the things I am most proud of, getting back to that question, was that for several years, we were able to do book events in a way that nobody had ever done book events.
Yeah.
And these were events that really rewarded people for coming out and seeing an author. And I would like to get back to that. We took a financial hit once the accountant ran away with all the money. And now we're taking a kind of COVID hit with people not being able to get together. Long term, the goal is to get back to doing those enormous happenings in that kind of Ken Kesey vein, because what was important was bringing people together and creating a community, a short-lived community around books. And what happened there for a number of years was just extraordinary. I was so proud of being part of that. And thanks to you, Dennis, and thanks to Todd, and all those people who worked so hard, thanks to the bookstores, to put together those 2,000-person parties that were all about books and reading. I hope we do that again.
I feel like there's going to come a day where people don't really believe that was even a thing, that there were lines around the block and they were like rock concerts for books. I mean, do you think that whole idea of the public book reading an event is dead?
I hope not. We'll find some way to do it. The only thing that might stand in the way right now is how soon people can come together in groups like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Chuck, for your time. This is awesome. The new graphic novel is Fight Club 3 from Dark Horse Comics. It's out now anywhere you buy comics or online. And we want to thank the good people at Live Signing for hosting this event. And stay safe.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, readers.